This is my screencast about my cinemagraph. My original idea was I wanted to find some way to visually show a math concept using graphs and overlaying the graphs onto whatever the cinemagraph was showing. I was thinking about doing either some sort of circular motion so I could show sine and cosine, or doing gravity and showing parabolic motion and maybe graphing parabolas and something like that. So I started out just grabbing some video off of YouTube and figuring out how to do the cinemagraph, so I knew what kind of footage I was going to go after. So I found this video of the carousel on Pier 39 off of YouTube and just kind of masked out the big area of the rotating carousel, and all the people around the side were moving. When I went out to actually shoot this video on the pier, I found that a lot of the rides in the center of the carousel didn't really line up when they made a full circular rotation. So you can see this one here didn't line up. So I ended up just rotating the top of it. I didn't think that was really going to be very good about showing what I was trying to go at. So I took a video of myself dropping a basketball just inside my garage, just to see what it's going to look like, get an idea of what was going on. The lighting is terrible, and the one thing I had a hard time with was where my hand was. I couldn't quite get my hand to show up and not show up, and it also looks a little awkward and fake, the way the ball bounces up and down. And there is really no parabolic motion that's really evident in that, so I kind of decided against that. I got some other video while I was out in San Francisco shooting on the pier. This is a variety show with the girl spinning balls on her head and the rubber chickens. I didn't end up using that one. I also got a lot of pictures with kites in the wind. So this is a paraglider testing out his kite in front of the Golden Gate Bridge. This is also a bird video. Happened to be sitting down in front of a bench, and that bird just landed there, and quickly got a shot of that. I really liked that one, but I couldn't really find a concept to relate that to. Here's just another one of a kite in the wind on that same beach. This was actually one of the first ones I did, with blocking out just the flag to have motion. I like this one because the flag was in motion, but also the boat was there and it wasn't in motion, and I think that was a really important concept, is to have something in motion and other things in motion that aren't, so that way you get kind of the contrast that there is motion and non-motion, and that's how you really know where to direct your attention to. So getting to the ones I finally, I'm actually using as my final project. So this was the kind of first draft of the cinemagraph I used with the performer Jeff Frisbee, I believe his name was, or Greg Frisbee. And he was juggling these 5 balls on the ground. And I thought it showed a really good use of parabolas, because you could overlay the parabolas and see that those balls are actually traveling in parabolic motion. There were some things that I wanted to fix up with this one. So you can see here that his sleeve was moving a little bit, so I got that masked out a little bit better. I also was trying to reduce a little bit of his hip sway that's behind the ball, so I just went in and really finely tuned the mask, so this part of his leg, because none of the balls traveled over that, I masked that out, and I kind of shored up this leg a little bit, and just a tiny little touch on this side of his leg as well, to make that look a little bit better. And there were some buttons on his shirt that were moving, so I kind of just masked those buttons to stay in the same place. So that was my final version of the cinemagraph. And then I put it into GeoGebra. And so this would be the activity that the students would use, would be to match the motion of those balls with this parabola. So they can just take these sliders and kind of move that parabola around until they can match that path up. And so eventually they would end up with 4 parabolas that match the motion of all of those balls. So that would be the activity that they would do, and they'll be able to visually see all those parabolas. The other one I did, I was just going to do, would be a simpler version of the juggling with the water fountain. So this was my First, go at the water fountain picture. Pretty simple, just looking at the water fountain at an angle. And then Mike suggested that make it a little more complicated, a little bit flashier, and double up the fountains. So I set up a shot straight on so that I could easily reverse it. I used iMovie to reverse it and overlay it. And then also in iMovie, I slightly offset the time so that the streams weren't exactly the same at exactly the same time. They're offset by about half a second or so. And then I didn't like how this reverse looked because it looked a little bit too mirrored imagey in the background. So I went into Photoshop and kind of cleaned up that background so it looked a little bit flatter and didn't look like it was exactly the mirror image with this kind of birthmark in the background. And this one you can do the same thing with finding out the parabolas in GeoGebra and have those line up and just overlay those. So that is my 2 cinemagraphs, and thank you for watching.